All right, we begin tonight with President Trump's crackdown on crime in Washington, D.C., a crackdown that he says is going to move to other cities. Good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Vargas, and just moments ago, the president went to the headquarters of U.S. Park Police, and there he paid his respects to the officers and guardsmen who are on patrol with D.C. police, rounding up criminals in the nation's capital. President Trump says it's making the Capitol safer than it's ever been before. The White House says there have been more than 600 arrests so far, and Trump says he keeps hearing from people thanking him for cleaning things up.
I've never received so many phone calls thanking me for what we've done in Washington, D.C., from people that haven't gone to a restaurant literally in 4 years. And they said, you know, what you've done it's unprecedented, because what they said it was just unsafe.
All right, let's go right now to NewsNation's Joe Khalil, live for us on the ground in D.C. Joe, the president first announced that he would actually be going out on patrol with the National Guard and the police tonight. That plan obviously changed. Why?
Yeah, well, we just moments ago got a word from an administration official through our Kelly Meyer over at the White House that the reason they say the decision was made to change the venue was because this was more advantageous of a place behind us that would keep the guardsmen, the troops, the law enforcement safer, would keep those people safer. Didn't say anything about the president. So that is what the administration is saying. Nonetheless, they did meet here behind us, and it is sort of a convenient location because it is a hub. This is the command center for basically all of the entire federalization operation, this takeover of D.C. And you can actually still see behind us, even though the president's gone, you've got the National Guard there. You see the troops behind us. You see the Humvee. And actually just over on this side, you can see the U.S. Park Police helicopter. And beyond that, the building over there where they had local police. They also had the federal agents there. And President Trump spoke to a crowd of a couple of hundred National Guardsmen and all of these officers as well. Take a listen to just some of his message here.
We're not playing games. We're going to make it safe. And we're going to then go on to other places. But we're going to stay here for a while. We want to make this absolutely perfect.
So that, Elizabeth, is what the president said. He also talked about not just the policing and the homeless encampments, but also beautification of D.C. in sort of broader terms in a way that we hadn't really heard him talk about before.
All right, Joe, very quickly, he said the decision was made to do it this way to keep the National Guardsmen safer. Safe from what?
That's a good question. You know, yesterday we saw J.D. Vance and Secretary Hegseth come through Union Station. A lot of hecklers, a lot of people making noise. So that is what the White House said. I don't know how much protection the National Guard needs, but that is the explanation from the White House.
Yeah, the Guard is usually doing the protecting. Joe Khalil reporting live. Thank you so much. Let's go to our panel right now. Rich Lowry is editor of the National Review, and Charles Moreno is a former Secret Service special agent and former senior advisor to the Department of Homeland Security. Great to have both of you here. So, Charles, I just want to start very quickly with you. I can't imagine the Secret Service was too keen when President Trump said, yo, I'd like to go on a ride-along with the police and the National Guard tonight while they make arrests.
That's right. Ultimately, the venue choice, the fact that he wasn't out there, quote unquote, patrolling the streets is up to the Secret Service, and it's ultimately responsible for the safety and security of the president. It also allowed for the president to do what I think was intended in this visit, and that was to thank the men and women of local and federal law enforcement for the job that they're doing and the impact that they're making in D.C.
Yeah, it's worth noting there are regular men and women from all over the country who volunteered to serve in the National Guard. And whether or not you agree with this mission, they've been getting a lot of booing and heckling while they're going about doing their business. So I'm sure they appreciated having the president at least acknowledge their service. Rich, President Trump is claiming mission accomplished already. We just heard him, obviously, and then earlier he posted on social media. Until 4 days ago, Washington, D.C. was the most unsafe city in the United States. Now it is perhaps the safest and getting better every single hour. Little hyperbole there, but is it too soon or right on target?
There are some early indications that crime is down. Now, I would expect that's a temporary effect. Everyone's heard about more federal resources. Everyone's seen more federal resources, if not in person, on their local TV. So everyone's sort of staying inside and keeping their heads down. I wouldn't expect that effect to last forever. I think the key thing, well, the two things obviously they can do. One, they can clean up the homeless encampments, and that's happening as we speak. Two, are federal officers really helping the DC police crack down on the several hundred young men who tend to be known to authorities already and already have rap sheets, probably already served time, who are responsible for about 60 or 70% of the gun violence in Washington. That's what you really focus on. If you can move the needle there, you might make some appreciable difference going forward. And then also, I think going forward, Congress needs to be more involved. And the DC law enforcement and criminal justice system is comprehensively under-resourced, and that's a role for Congress to help out there.
Charles, 6 Republican governors have now sent their own National Guard troops from their own states, where, by the way, crime is statistically higher in those states. But they have sent the Guard to D.C. I want to, I get that we all want our nation's capital to be safe and clean, but how much is all of this costing American taxpayers?
Yeah, this can't go on forever, right? And it's costing a lot of money, which is why I think what we're seeing in D.C. is going to serve as a case study potentially for other locations. Look, you've got a Republican-led state like Tennessee with a big sanctuary city problem in a city like Memphis, their capital.
And a very high crime rate.
Very high, and it's caught the attention of the president. The U.S. Marshals just conducted operations there and arrested 100 very dangerous fugitives. So you can see an expansion of this program that we're seeing in D.C. to other locations, likely sanctuary spots. But I think other Republican governors are sending their resources there as a show of support for what the president is doing. It'll come down to the politics.
Rich, do you think this is the best use of our Guard, of our military? We have nearly 2,000 soldiers and airmen now patrolling D.C.
No, certainly not for the long term. It's kind of a show of force. Everyone who's been harassed on the metro in Washington, D.C., I'm sure appreciates seeing the men and women in camouflage standing on platforms or walking along cars, whatever they're doing. But that isn't a long-term good use for the Guard. But I do agree, probably going to see it in other cities. Now, the National Guard can't go out and arrest people. They can stand in front of federal assets and have kind of a show of force. But you do have federal agents that can go after gangs, that can be more intensive and trying to help out these cities. You can't take over the police force the way you do in Washington, D.C., because the federal government has a unique role there. But I do think when Trump, he's talked about it repeatedly, when Trump says this is a test case, he wants to do it elsewhere, we're probably going to see it happen.
All right, Rich Lowry, Charles Marino, great to have both of you and your expertise on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to turn now to California, where new details are emerging tonight in the case of that 7-month-old baby boy who's been missing now for a week. His parents say he was kidnapped last Thursday, and tonight they say they're concerned about their own safety. So what happened to Emmanuel Harrow and where he is remains a mystery. His mother, Rebecca, says that around 7 p.m. exactly 1 week ago, she was changing his diaper outside her truck in the parking lot of a Big 5 sporting goods store. She claims a man came up behind her, attacked her, and knocked her out. And when she came to, Emmanuel was gone. Investigators are largely focusing on Rebecca and her husband, Jake, the baby's father, after noting some inconsistencies in the mother's story. Jake also has relevant criminal history here. He was convicted of child cruelty in a case involving his 10-week-old baby in 2018. So far, police have not named any suspects, nor have they ruled out foul play. But members of the public following the story have their own suspicions. The parents say they are now facing threats. They even say they called 911 last night after strangers came onto their property, stole things from their porch, and banged on their door. Joining us now is NewsNation senior investigative producer Allison Weiner. She's been on the scene speaking with sources on the ground. Also joining us is former FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon. Allison, I want to start with you. You've been in close contact with Jake and Rebecca Harrow and the lawyer who's representing Jake. What kinds of threats is this couple getting?
Well, it's a bit of a circus outside of the house. I was actually in Cabazon, and the pictures that we just showed of the, memorial or the signs up are right outside of the house. Cabazon is an area of California in the middle of the desert that is about 30 minutes from Palm Springs. It's about 108 outside there. And I was standing outside there. There's a lot of media there, but there's also a lot of TikTokers and all kinds of pseudo-interested people who are milling about, and I assume that also includes, some unsavory types. I don't assume it. I saw some unsavory types. It's also, these people are walking onto the lawn. They're walking up to the house. They're banging on the door. I saw some of that behavior. So basically, this case has generated a lot of emotion. People are very.
And why did they call 911, Allison?
Well, there was a man that went up to the house. He banged on the door repeatedly. He stole something off of the porch, and then he made some joke about how, he had done the five-finger gift or whatever and taken the item. It was a gift from the Harrows, or, just sort of making a joke about it. The police came, but they did not speak with Mr. Harrows, and they cited the reasons for not speaking with him because he had declined to speak with the police at this time about this case. But frankly, he's very frightened. And when they left their house, everybody ran after their car. I was there, and I saw sort of the circus following them.
And Allison, why is the police are saying that the couple are not complying with police? They say they are. The police say they're not. Why do we have this difference here?
Well, I think they were trying to be assisting initially, and then I think when the focus turned on them, they have refused to meet with the police for, say, for a lie detector test. The wife has, the Rebecca, the mom. And the issue here is I spoke with Mr. Harrow's lawyer. He is not representing the mother, but he told me that she was willing, that he had heard that she was willing to meet with the police and take a lie detector test if her lawyer was present. Apparently, they couldn't come to terms. And again, I had a conversation with the lawyer. He is beginning to be in hiding because he is frightened because he's receiving death threats.
So,
And
Bobby,
Yeah.
I've spoken to several lawyers today who say it's not normal to have a lawyer present during a lie detector test. Is that your understanding, number one? And number two, what do you make of a mother in this position refusing to take one?
Well, first of all, that is true. I've been subjected to many polygraph tests when I had a national security top clearance. So I had to be polygraphed, and I put people under polygraphs. And the polygraphers that I've worked with always say it's a one-on-one. It's the polygrapher and the subject, nobody else in the room, and that's the way it has to happen. It's a very specific process, and so you can. It's kind of like a grand jury. You can have your lawyer outside in the hallway, and you can take a break and ask them stuff, but you can't have them in the room when the polygraph is being given. It's usually just the polygrapher and the subject of the polygraph, and that's just the process that they go through. So that's I think where we're at now. Why would she refuse? There's a number of reasons why she would refuse. She might feel she might fail, or she might feel that there are other things that she's been involved in that she doesn't want to talk about that they may get into. I don't know her motivations for not wanting it or wanting a lawyer there with her.
She clearly knows suspicion is turned toward her. She's, I'm sure, nervous. I'm just, I'm reading a lot on social media as well, and we've interviewed people who are from the area. As a mom myself, if one of my children were missing, I would do anything humanly possible that you asked me to do. If it would help find them in any way. But Allison, I do want to ask you about something because you have spoken to the lawyer. People who are at that football game, right? People who were at the football game where the Harrows went to watch one of Jake Harrow's older sons play, no one at the football game says they saw the baby. You say that's actually because you were told that Rebecca never got out of the car with Emmanuel because it was so hot. She was staying inside the car with the baby because she needed the air conditioning.
Yes, that is what the lawyer said. I said to him, she wasn't spotted with the baby at the football game, and she also wasn't spotted with the baby at the Big Five store. The lawyer responded, Mr. Hughes is the name of the lawyer. He responded that she wasn't in the Big Five because the incident occurred before she was going into the Big Five. She was out there diapering the baby, and after the baby was taken, she went into the Big Five. This is what the lawyer, Mr. Hughes, was saying to me. I mean, I think that we have to, he is representing somebody, and this
Right.
is what they're working on, what the defense would be. But frankly, you're also hearing from police sources that, they've taken the phones. I heard from other sources, involved in the investigation, that they are looking at the phone records to see if they could see if the father or the mother went to any specific locations where a body
That's
was
what
buried.
they've already sent cadaver dogs to the house. They were unable, I guess, to turn up anything since we've heard nothing. But they're
But
obviously.
Elizabeth, this is in the middle of the desert. They have a
Right.
lot. It is a lot of Bobby lives in there.
Yeah. All right.
It's rough terrain.
It's rough terrain, Bobby. This is not a good story. A baby disappearing like this now for exactly a week. Bobby Chacon, Allison Weiner, thank you both so much. Really appreciate it.
I'll
All
stay
right,
on it.
now to breaking news. We have reports of an active shooter at Villanova University. The reports came in earlier today, but they have now been dismissed by the university president as a, quote, cruel hoax. Reverend Peter M. Donahue said in a statement that was released just in the last hour that, quote, there was no active shooter, there were no injuries, and there was no evidence of any firearms on campus. His statement followed a text shared by students earlier this afternoon from the Villanova alert system. That alert system told the students to lock and barricade doors and move to secure locations. A second alert then went out that warned people to stay away from the law school. Police then posted officers that were clearing buildings and that there were no reported victims. It was the first word that we heard. Videos were posted on social media showing armed police officers showing up on campus and emergency vehicles. This all only helped perpetuate the hysteria. There is no word on how the initial alert was triggered and why that second alert then followed. Reverend Donahue apologized to first-year students and their families who were all on campus attending new school orientation for the start of the school when these alerts of an active shooter went out. Scary stuff. All right, coming up, U.S. warships are on their way to Venezuela to take on drug cartels. The country's president has a federal arrest warrant for drug trafficking, so what might that mean for him? Plus, a new documentary argues that COVID-19 led to the biggest civil rights violations in a century. Are we only just beginning to understand the price that American children paid? The producer of that documentary joins me live.
Look how big the storm is.
A doomsday scenario.
Houses are gone. People have lost all their stuff. People here are suffering.
Decades later, the scars remain, and we remember.
The Hurricane Katrina tapes, Sunday at 8/7 Central on NewsNation.
What does it mean when the United States declares drug cartels terrorist organizations? Well, Venezuela is about to find out. President Trump is sending 3 Navy warships to its coast. The USS Gravely, the USS Sampson, and the USS Jason Dunham are expected to arrive there soon, though it's unclear exactly when. Now, they're not going there to topple President Nicolas Maduro's socialist dictatorship. Rather, the ships are there supposedly to put pressure on Venezuela's drug cartels. But in the eyes of the United States, Venezuela is being run by a gangster, so who knows how far this could go. Just 2 weeks ago, the administration doubled the reward for Venezuelan President Maduro's arrest to $50 million for his role in drug trafficking.
Maduro's reign of terror continues. He is one of the largest narco traffickers in the world and a threat to our national security.
The Pentagon moves are part of the military's expanded role in countering Latin American drug cartels under President Trump. In February, the State Department designated several cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And in recent weeks, Trump reportedly gave the military the go-ahead to use force against them. Maduro responded this week by announcing a deployment of more than 4.5 million militia members around the country. Let's get reaction now from Stacy Zinn, the former head of the Montana Drug Enforcement Agency. Stacy, great to have you back. Is this what is this strategy? Explain this. What are these warships going to do off the coast of Venezuela?
Well, it's a show of strength. Right now, when you have shipments being, you have cocaine shipments traveling across the ocean. When you have military presence there, it's going to divert the cocaine traveling up to the United States. And what do I mean by that? Basically, what will happen is that the South American cartels, Central American cartels, what they'll do is they'll shift the transport channel, and Maduro will not be able to get his monies like expected.
So they're cutting off Maduro's money by doing this. These drugs don't come from Venezuela. Fentanyl does not come from Venezuela. Cocaine does travel through Venezuela from countries south up north to the United States. And when it travels through Venezuela, Maduro collects a fee.
Oh, absolutely. You have to pay a tax through his country. And cocaine comes through 3 countries, Peru, Bolivia, and Colombia. But Venezuela will have an agreement with some of these traffickers in these different countries. They will be able to air bridge their cocaine to Venezuela. And from there, the cocaine will be offloaded into types of either ships or cigar boats and then transported across the waters.
So the warships are there to stop the cocaine from going on boats out of Venezuela further north, to points north?
That could be what the administration is currently doing. But again, it's a show of force. And it's also showing that this administration is not going to take drug trafficking lying down, which is different from the previous administration. So President Trump is serious about stopping the flow of these dangerous drugs into the United States.
These types of illegal drugs, I don't need to tell you how deadly they are and how many people make so much money. It's a huge, huge business. These drug cartels are creative. These cartel leaders are ruthless. They will find other ways to get these drugs here.
And you're absolutely correct. But you have a strong leader in DEA right now where they're going to be ready. They're going to look at different avenues. They will liaison with different foreign countries to stop the flow. But we need to stop the flow because of the deadly fentanyl that's coming into the United States. People are now mixing cocaine and fentanyl together. Fentanyl and meth. So we need to stop this flow that's coming across our southwest border or to the Bahamas and to that region. But we need to do something. And President Trump is currently doing this.
Now, the DEA has actually conducted similar type operations in the past. Did they work? And can anything be learned from perhaps past mistakes?
Oh, absolutely. I was part of those operations in the past. So basically, you have teams that'll set up in different locations. We'll do helo operations. We will watch for the boats coming in that are transporting drugs. Unfortunately, the drug dealers will then divert their cocaine or other drugs and go a different route, or they'll just sit back and they'll try to wait the U.S. off.
Yeah, I don't know how long we can keep warships, floating off the coast of Venezuela at taxpayer expense, but really fascinating and bold move. Stacey Zinn, thanks so much. Appreciate your coming on the show tonight.
Thank you.
All right, coming up for us, NewsNation's Brian Enton is live in Los Angeles as a parole board hears the Menendez brothers' case for freedom. Could the brothers be back on the street after decades in prison for murdering their parents? LA District Attorney Nathan Hochman will join me live. After more than 3 decades in prison, convicted killers Erik and Lyle Menendez may be close to freedom tonight. They were convicted and sentenced to life in prison for the 1989 murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. The brothers say the killings were in self-defense. Now, each is taking turns before a California parole board to make their case for freedom. Today, Erik went first in a video conference with parole officials. Tomorrow, Lyle will have his chance in a virtual hearing before the board. The parole board will determine if the brothers pose an unreasonable risk or danger to society if they're released. But this is no slam dunk for either of the brothers. First off, the parole board is considering their cases separately. So one brother could be granted parole while the other is denied and forced to remain behind bars. And even if the board does grant them both parole, decisions on their fate could still be months away. Governor Gavin Newsom will have to weigh in for the final say. California law gives him 30 days to approve, deny, or modify parole board decisions for people convicted of murder. It could be weeks before we know anything about the brothers' fate for sure. For more now, let's go to NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Anton, who joins us live from San Diego outside the Donovan Correctional Center. That's where the brothers are being jailed. Brian, when will we know what the parole board decides?
Yeah, that's the big question, Elizabeth. It could really happen at any minute now. You know, this hearing started at 8:30 this morning, and we were told that they typically take 5, maybe 6 hours. It has been much longer than that. Granted, we know there were a lot of people expected to speak. Of course, Erik Menendez, his attorney, the prosecution, and then a number of family members, we told, were set to speak. But it is still ongoing right now. Erik Menendez is appearing virtually from inside the prison behind me. His brother, Lyle, is also there. His parole hearing will be tomorrow. What's interesting and kind of frustrating, Elizabeth, about the rules here in California is we've been getting updates, select reporters all day long from inside the parole hearing. And I'll tell you, it's been very, very interesting. There's a lot that I didn't know that has come out, but they've got very, very strict rules that no one can report anything that happened inside the hearing until the parole board, which we're told there's 2 or 3 of them, they're going to make the decision in this case, until they meet and make the decision once the hearing is officially over. So once that happens, hopefully sometime soon, and we do expect it to be today, we'll be able to report all of the information we learned that happened throughout the entire day in this hearing. Elizabeth?
Okay, the minute you're able to tell us what you can't tell us right now, wave, and you can hop back on the show. Brian Anton reporting live outside the prison there where it's all happening. Let's go now to Nathan Hochman, the LA County District Attorney, who's been outspoken in his opposition to the brothers' release, saying not yet. Nathan Hochman, thank you so much for joining us. So,
my pleasure.
Erik and Lyle's lawyers wrote in their filing that no court has ever heard the full story in this case. So did the parole board hear the full story today?
So our job in the DA's office was to make sure that the parole board did hear the full story. We analyzed over 50,000 pages of trial transcript, thousands of pages of confidential prison records, spoke to the Menendez family members for over 3 hours, their lawyers, prosecutors, and law enforcement. And we laid out in over 80 pages the detailed analysis of the entire situation that started with the planning, the premeditated planning by the Menendez brothers, buying shotguns 2 days beforehand in a different city under a fake name, having a pre-planned alibi where they were supposed to be at Batman the movie, and then actually trying to buy tickets after the murders. We talked about the way they actually murdered their parents brutally. 12 shotgun blasts that basically were staged to make it look like a mafia hit. Through the dad, through the back of his head, the mom as she lied bleeding on the ground, a point-blank range shot to the cheek, then through the kneecaps. Then methodically getting rid of all the evidence. Then calling 911 and screaming, "Someone killed our parents," and staging it and saying it was the mafia that did that. We have said that for the last 35 years, they perpetrated a lie, which is the self-defense defense. And by that, I mean, they did not say that the reason they killed their parents was because they were sexually abused by their dad. They actually said that was not the reason under oath. They said the true reason why they supposedly killed their parents was that they feared their parents were going to kill them, mom and dad, that night, so they had to shoot them first. We've shown how that lie, that series of lies, is just that, a fabrication. And for 35 years, they've never owned it. The parole board's going to be focusing on full insight into one's criminal actions,
right,
and decide whether or not they're going to release the Menendez brothers.
The parole board, if the parole board does not believe that the brothers are, quote, radically honest in this hearing about how and why they killed their parents, they will almost certainly not get parole. And that would, in your opinion, radical honesty. First of all, you've got a prosecutor in the hearing today, yes, from your office. What are they telling you? Is Erik showing this, quote, radical honesty?
I've not been able to get the full reports. We actually only could put in one prosecutor. They wouldn't let the district attorney himself, who's a counsel of record, be in the parole hearing. So I have no idea if this result is already predetermined before the parole hearing started or not. Either way, though, we have a prosecutor there. He is making the points that though there are a number of pro-parole factors in the Menendez's favor, Governor Newsom himself has said that the most critical factor that can outweigh all other factors is whether or not the Menendezes have shown full insight, complete acceptance of responsibility for the murders they did and all the lies they told about it. They have not done that yet. If they ever do it, they might be ready for parole, but they have not done it yet, and therefore we have argued are not ready for parole at this hearing.
And it's worth noting, Governor Newsom just rejected a parole board vote to give Sirhan parole. Governor Newsom said no, overruled the parole board because he felt Sirhan was lying, was still saying lies. So this is obviously an issue of great importance to him.
It is, and interestingly, the comparisons between Sirhan's case and the Menendez case is actually worse for the Menendez brothers. Sirhan was 78 at that point, had served 54 years of his sentence, had done all the rehab programs in prison, education programs, and had all these pro-parole factors, but didn't show that full insight and had his parole denied by the governor after the parole board granted it. So whether or not that plays out in the Menendez hearings, we have to wait and see.
Well, another thing not in their favor is that they've been deemed in this risk assessment report to be of, quote, moderate risk to society. Only 20% of inmates who are at moderate risk are released on parole. So that, at least statistically, the odds are against them there. Nathan Hochman, thank you, sir, so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, coming up on America's fastest growing cable channel, she was a corporate executive who says she was booted for criticizing school COVID-19 restrictions. Well, now she's made a documentary about what she says are the lasting ramifications of pandemic policies on Generation COVID. She joins me live next. And remember, you can download our NewsNation app for the very latest news and top stories of the night. So it was March 2020 when school kids across the country were told the news, no school tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after that. The COVID pandemic meant they all had to stay home. Now, at first, the news was welcomed with the jubilation that usually accompanies a snow day, but it soon became very clear that the school closures were not an extended holiday. They were both a de facto prison sentence, confining kids to their homes, and a theft, robbing them of precious years of education. Countless kids have yet to fully recover from those lockdowns, either socially or academically. They all became collateral damage of COVID lockdowns, and that damage is now explored in a new documentary called Generation COVID. Here's a clip.
I expected it to only be for like 2 weeks, and then we get back to school.
As officials try to slow the spread of the coronavirus, some states have begun shutting down their entire school systems.
We will be extending our guidelines to slow the spread.
We were told we were just supposed to close schools for a couple weeks to prevent the hospitals from being overwhelmed.
How am I going to get through college if I don't have a junior year of football? I was so upset.
It was everyone. Everyone gave up.
I think he didn't go out of the house at one point for 6 months. He didn't go nowhere. He never even stepped out of the house.
Yes! I had a plan to heal myself, and I thought about it every day.
You cannot treat kids like prisoners and expect them to be okay.
The memories that we have lost, the experiences that we have lost, the skills that we have lost, and now we have to regain that. My generation will not forgive.
Wow, one of the directors of that film is Jennifer Say. Jennifer's a former champion gymnast. She was also a president at Levi Strauss, and was fired from her job for speaking out about COVID restrictions. Jennifer, great to have you here. Thanks so much. You know, long after adults were going back to work, going back to bars, going back to restaurants, kids were still stuck at home on Zoom school. And your documentary makes the case that there's an entire generation of kids who were radically and irrevocably hurt in that process.
Yeah, I mean, it's not every kid in the generation, but the percentage is far too high. the percentage is far too high. The learning loss, the mental health impacts, the absenteeism, the chronic absenteeism that persists, the kids who failed to graduate, the kids who couldn't do sports for the last 2 years of high school and they couldn't get that college scholarship that they were relying on, the kids that gained weight. Like, it just goes on, Elizabeth. And these kids are not okay. And there hasn't really been a reckoning. There's sort of off to the side people saying, yeah, schools were closed too long. Well, there are 50 million American public school children. Half of them were in disrupted schooling for well over 2 years. You know, I lived in California at the time. In the spring of 2021, my son, who was in public high school, could not go to English class, but I could have gone to bars and stood, you know, belly up to the bar, shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of people. That's ridiculous. We use kids as human shields. We're supposed to protect them. They aren't supposed to protect us. And we've done a lot of damage to this generation, and there needs to be a reckoning, and people are reluctant to have it, that reckoning.
Well, there have been a couple of books that have come out. We've had the authors of those books who've talked about these policies, you know, red state, blue state. Red states opened up faster, blue states did not. But your documentary really dives into the kids themselves and the toll it took.
That's right.
Yes, not every kid, you know, both my sons got through Zoom school just fine,
right.
and they're fine. I have other members of my extended family who did not get through COVID fine. They have yet to fully recover from that experience. So what did you find as you talked to these kids? How bad did it get? We heard one girl in that clip say she was contemplating suicide. I mean, that's as bad as it can get.
Yeah, we want people to hear directly from the kids. No one's talked to the actual kids. We've talked about policy. We haven't had a reckoning around the fact that that policy could never happen again. That young woman you're referring to, her name is Scarlett. She lived in Oakland. You know, she describes it really well in the film. She says, without school, I had no structure. I had no feedback. I had no positive feedback from adults who had my best interest at heart, and I found it elsewhere. She got in a lot of trouble. She started using drugs. She ended up in the mental hospital several times. She did try to kill herself. She found herself trying to find connection. She was so isolated, and she was finding it in all the wrong places. One family we talked to in the film did actually lose their son to suicide in the spring of 2021. But we also talk to people, you know, more mundane things, you know, the kids who just fell behind and have not caught up. We talked to a family with a child with developmental delay. She has Down syndrome. She missed that critical year of third grade. School is where she learns to put her coat on, to follow the lead of the other students. She's just falling so far behind from that. They're very worried that she will never make that back. So, you know, we tried to cover the full range, and we talked to kids from across the country. And I think it's really important that we listen to them. We need to listen to the kids. We need to have a reckoning. We need to understand what happened so we can help them and we can make sure it never happens again.
You know, one of the things we kept hearing from public health authorities during COVID was children are resilient. You know, I heard that over and over. Kids are resilient. They're stronger than we think. They'll be okay. What you have found is that yes, many of them, perhaps most of them, were okay or ended up okay enough, but a substantial, smaller but substantial percentage were definitely not okay.
Yeah, and I mean, that doesn't mean we abuse them. Just because a lot of children are resilient, a lot of us are resilient, that doesn't mean we should create obstacles for these children. You know, the kids that suffer the most are the kids that are the most vulnerable, the kids from low-income homes, and we made their lives so much harder, and some will not recover, and I am really committed to getting their stories out there. I don't want this to ever happen again. We cannot make kids bear the burden for us.
And super quick, Jennifer, why were you fired from Levi Strauss?
Well, I resigned. I was very outspoken about school closures. I have 4 children, all public school students. It was not a popular opinion in San Francisco, where I lived for over 35 years, and it became pretty inhospitable. I chose to resign. And
so you resigned, you weren't fired?
That's correct.
Okay, glad we could clear that up. Jennifer, congrats on the documentary. It's important for people to see this. I think we tend, as a global trauma, you know, it was a traumatic experience. We all want to move forward and not look back. It's important that we look back and learn so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Appreciate
Couldn't agree more.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks. Coming up for us, Cracker Barrel goes woke and its customers go off. Is this the biggest rebranding blunder since the new Coke? brands you just leave alone. Logo changes, often decided in soulless corporate boardrooms, are nothing new, but some are met with more derision than others. Remember when Gap did this? Or when MasterCard did this? And when Jaguar did this? Well, someone at Cracker Barrel Old Country Stores decided to give Cracker Barrel a similar do-over by ditching the barrel, the country store, not to mention the old guy perched out front. Now it's just plain, not so old Cracker Barrel. Someone better hide the chicken and dumplings and rocking chairs before the suits circle back. The reactions online were swift and devastating. WTF is wrong with Cracker Barrel, asks Donald Trump Jr. I'm keeping it clean for all of you guys. It's time to make Cracker Barrel great again, says Florida Congresswoman Byron Donalds. Investors as well are spending their money elsewhere. The stock for Cracker Barrel dropped more than 7% today. Ouch. Okay, Jesse Weber is sitting in for Chris Cuomo.
It's like Dunkin'. It's
Why?
remember when they did that? The
Like,
donuts was the best part.
Why? There is so much right now they're all having to deal with, with tariffs and the economy. Like, why would you go screw everything up by changing a logo that nobody was upset about?
Yeah, well, now they are. And I have to tell you, Cracker Barrel, very good. Is this the most we've talked about Cracker Barrel in quite some years?
It's the only time I've really discussed
well, that
other than the fact that we all love their dumplings.
Yeah, there you go.
So they're super, super good.
Maybe they'll go back.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, good to see you.
You got a good big show tonight. I know you've got, obviously, the Menendez brothers here.
We're
We're just going to
carefully
wrap
watching.
up at any moment, and that may come in.
And we don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of unpredictable right now.
You might get that decision on your show.
We shall see. Elizabeth, good to see you.
Have a good one.
You got it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.